President Trump declared a national emergency on Friday and then spent the rest of the weekend lashing out at critics. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. After Trump unilaterally bypassed Congress by declaring a fake national emergency to build his border wall, he spent the rest of the weekend calling the media the enemy of the people, demanded retribution against TV networks, and called Justice Department officials who investigated him treasonous. It's more obvious every day that Trump's natural inclination is to be a dictator. He could even try to grow a dictator mustache, but based on the rest of his hair situation, I'm not sure. And Trump would be even scarier if he weren't so easily distracted. For example, he couldn't even make it 24 hours after declaring his national emergency before he escaped to Florida for a weekend of golf and lounging around at his private club in Palm Beach, where he was spotted on Saturday waiting for breakfast.
President Trump spending his first day following that emergency declaration at the Trump International Golf Club down in Palm Beach, and this photo of President Trump at the club's omelet bar went viral, getting retweeted thousands of times over.
There's no clearer sign that this is not a real emergency than the fact that he is at an omelet bar. In a real emergency, no one goes to the omelet bar. The building is on fire. I'll be right there. Oh, yeah. Onions, green peppers, ham. Do you have ham? Put it in a to-go box. Also, it's good to see your emergency wear is the official uniform of golf grandpas everywhere. I mean, look at him. He looks like a 6-foot-tall Band-Aid. I'm shocked he wasn't wearing a fanny pack and trying to get them to take an expired coupon. I'm sorry, but that is not how a president should look ever, but especially during an emergency. When President Obama got bin Laden, he was in the Situation Room surrounded by generals. Can you imagine Trump overseeing that mission from the omelet bar at his golf club? Navy SEALs, this is your president. Give me a full situation. Wait, hold on. What's that? Yeah. Hash browns. And even when he's not in Florida golfing and eating soft foods, it's clear we've elected as our president an adult grandpa who has trouble forming coherent sentences. For example, during his press conference on Friday, Trump explained that he expected a protracted court challenge to his national emergency declaration, although it was less of an explanation and more of a sing-song ramble.
I'll sign the final papers as soon as I get into the Oval Office, and we will have a national emergency, and we will then be sued, and they will sue us in the Ninth Circuit, even though it shouldn't be there, and we will possibly get a bad ruling, and then we'll get another bad ruling, and then we'll end up in the Supreme Court, and hopefully we'll get a fair shake, and we'll win in the Supreme Court, just like the ban. They sued us in the Ninth Circuit, and we lost, and then we lost in the appellate division, and then we went to the Supreme Court, and we won.
He sounds like a 5-year-old telling you what he saw at the zoo. And then we saw the monkeys, and they were eating bananas. And Todd said, we used to be apes. And I said, that's not true. And Todd said, yes, it is. And then a bird crapped on his head. Of course, it's true that Trump's national emergency declaration will be challenged in court, given that it's very likely unconstitutional. If Trump has any chance of winning in court at all, he has to insist that this was his only choice, that he had one thing he had to say, this is a real emergency, we had to do it this way.
I could do the wall over a longer period of time. I didn't need to do this, but I'd rather do it much faster.
You didn't need to do this, then it's not an emergency. That's the exact opposite of an emergency. That's a choice. That's like saying, I'm having emergency surgery to get butt implants. I didn't need to do this, but I hate doing squats. When he heard that, even Rudy Giuliani said, oh no, you shouldn't have said that. Trump might even know on some level that his national emergency stands no chance of surviving a court challenge, and he very likely doesn't care because he's doing this entirely to please a very narrow set of right-wing pundits who hectored him into building the wall, like Rush Limbaugh, who Trump actually name-checked during his press conference on Friday.
Mr. President, could you tell us to what degree some of the outside conservative voices helped to shape your views on this national emergency?
I would talk about it. Look, Sean Hannity has been a terrific supporter of what I do, not of me. If I changed my views, he wouldn't be with me. Rush Limbaugh, I think he's a great guy. He's a guy can speak for 3 hours without a phone call. Try doing that sometime. For 3 hours he speaks. He's got one of the biggest audiences in the history of the world. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. Try speaking for 3 hours without taking calls. Taking calls is easy. Okay, I'll answer this one, I'll answer that one. He goes for 3 hours, and he's got an audience that's fantastic.
My God, that answer took 3 hours. Also, if he's talking for 3 hours without taking calls, maybe nobody's calling him. We're gonna open the phone line. And even if you put aside the chaos this is causing here at home, it definitely seems like all this is hurting our image around the world, too. Vice President Mike Pence discovered that over the weekend when he mentioned President Trump in a speech in Munich. He clearly thought it was going to be an applause line, and it was definitely not.
I bring greetings from the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. Last August...
Say what you want about Mike Pence. The man knows how to hold for silence. I never thought I'd say this, but Pence might have to hire Jeb Bush as his hype man.
I bring greetings from the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump.
Please clap.
But a reaction like that must really sting for Trump, who craves validation and praise. In fact, over the weekend, we learned that Trump asked the Prime Minister of Japan to nominate him for a Nobel Prize. A Japanese newspaper reported that Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize last autumn after receiving a request from the U.S. government to do so, which is especially embarrassing given that on Friday, Trump bragged about the fact that Abe had nominated him for the Nobel Prize and claimed he had no idea he was about to do that.
Prime Minister Abe of Japan gave me the most beautiful copy of a letter that he sent to the people who give out a thing called the Nobel Prize. He said, I have nominated you, or respectfully on behalf of Japan, I am asking them to give you the Nobel Peace Prize. I said, thank you.
Oh, really? You said thank you? Did you also bribe him? Here you go, Shinzo. This is for one free omelet. It is expired. So maybe just frame it. Somehow I doubt that Trump will get that Nobel Peace Prize after unilaterally declaring a non-existent emergency at our border with Mexico. For weeks, Trump has gone back and forth on the possibility of declaring an emergency while also insisting he was already building the wall, as he did right before his State of the Union address, although he was very coy about it.
Are you saying now you expect to declare a national
I don't want to say, but you'll hear the State of the Union, and then you'll see what happens right after the State of the Union, okay?
You'll hear the State of the Union, and then you'll see what happens after the State of the Union. Trump is so out of his depth, he's dodging questions by explaining how time works. Mr. President, didn't you say Mexico would pay for the wall? I said Mexico will pay for the wall in the future, not the present. And everyone knows the future comes after the present as opposed to the past, which is before the present. And we can't go back to the past. We can only go back to the future, which I learned from that documentary about Bernie Sanders. The reason Trump spent so many weeks seesawing back and forth is because Republicans were reportedly urging him not to declare the national emergency, knowing the move would be unpopular and unconstitutional. And yet, as soon as Trump did it, Republicans either supported him or were muted in their criticism, like Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley, who only said, I wish he wouldn't have done it. But Grassley was much angrier when GOP Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell took to the Senate floor last week to announce that Trump would declare a national emergency. Grassley was talking about something totally unrelated and got mad when McConnell interrupted him.
Allowing these tax credits, incentives to lapse, has created uncertainty for investors and the industry about the availability of these
Would
credits,
the senator yield?
jeopardizing the long-term investments necessary for the development of these biofuels. I hope the next time I get a chance to have the floor, I won't be interrupted. I yield the floor and put the rest of my statement in the record.
Mr. President.
Leader McConnell.
You know you're old when the young'un disrespecting you is Mitch McConnell. That's how loud Grassley yells when Trump cuts him in line at the omelet bar.
We're at the whims of angry old men screaming about stuff they hear on talk radio or see on Fox News. Trump just rambles aimlessly from one topic to the next, and his alternate reality is reinforced by the right-wing pundits who support him. Trump is obviously unfit to be president, and if someone beats him in 2020, that person's going to get
a thing called the Nobel Prize.
This has been A Closer Look.